everyone. Welcome to Ignite 2021, our on-demand industry panels. My name is Katie Martucci, and I work in the Career Services Office at DelVal. I'm our Employer Relations and Career Advisor. Today, this first panel that we have is focused on the pharmaceutical industry, and this is part of a broader series that our office is putting on. You can check out more of our industry panels on the Career Services SharePoint site. We're excited to have each of our industry panels here with us today to share more about their career story. And just please note that these panelists are willing and open to connect with you, our students. So if you'd like to connect individually with one of them, based on what you hear today, go ahead and email us, cspd@delval.edu, for their contact information. All right, we'll get started. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to please introduce themselves briefly, and we'll start with Nancy. Go ahead.
Thanks, Katie. I'm Nancy Catricks. I'm the Vice President of Global Safety QA for Charles River Laboratories. Charles River Laboratories is a contract research organization. So our company does the testing for other companies, products and services for pharmaceuticals out in the industry.
Layara, how about you go next?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Layara Powell. I served as the first ever recruiter for the Doctor of Pharmacy program at Temple University. My experience came from the love of science, but also the love of higher ed, where I was introduced during my undergraduate experience. And so now being able to support higher ed and my love for science all in one, here I am today. Thank you for having me.
Katelyn, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Katelyn Cole. I am a drug safety specialist for Merck Animal Health. I work in the companion animal and livestock sector, and I've been with them for about 5 years. Thanks for having me.
Lorraine.
Hello, Lorraine Singer. I work at Johnson & Johnson and have been there for the past 13 years. I am currently working in our pharmaceutical sector in our oncology drug division, and I'm on the business side. I do marketing for a drug for leukemia and lymphoma, and I'm currently focused on putting together educational programs for our oncologists.
We have an awesome crew. I'm so excited about this one. Before we dive into questions, just quick show of hands so our students know. For those of you who are DelVal alumni, can you let us know? All right, 50%, woo.
and Temple as well, so that's super fun.
Oh, nice. All right, so Nancy, we'll start with you with this first question, and then we can go around in the same order. So just briefly share how you got started in this career.
So I completed my undergraduate at DelVal. Small animal science was my undergraduate degree. When I started at DelVal, I had high hopes of being a veterinarian when I grew up. And first semester happened and realized that that probably wasn't going to work out for me. So really was fortunate to be at DelVal and realize there was this whole other world in the pharmaceutical industry to get involved with. So that's kind of what led me down the path to where I am now. I started in a very different role than what I am in now. It was definitely more in the scientific role, was a scientist, really working on reproductive and developmental toxicology. And then through working at Charles River Laboratories, discovered kind of this whole new career in safety, quality assurance, learning the good laboratory practice regulations. And really got interested in that. And then I actually pursued my master's degree at Temple in quality assurance regulatory affairs. So I moved into the QA area of Charles River Laboratories and just really love it because I really get to see so many different perspectives. And what's really neat is that, having that undergraduate degree in the scientific field really set me up well for what I do now because I kind of have that understanding. So it's very interesting to me kind of what I started as thinking was going to happen and where I am now. But it was a pretty fun journey. And I guess when I think about it, I think, wow, there's so much you can do with a degree in the pharmaceutical industry. And it's not just about, being in the lab. I know, Lorraine, you said you're in marketing. I mean, there's just so many different opportunities between marketing, finance, human resources, client services, science, QA. There's just so many different things in the pharmaceutical industry. So lots of fun opportunities out there.
Thanks. Go ahead, Lara.
That's perfect because I'll actually start backwards. That's actually how and why I'm in my career field today. I've actually pushed for students to see past the pharmacy countertops, and that is kind of the umbrella of our open house theme, is pushing students to see past the pharmacy countertops and beyond. I've always had a love for science, but I didn't know anything about pharmacy. After graduating from Lincoln University, I thought, I love science, but I'm not ready to go to grad school. So what do I do? And so it was really about just finding experiences that just piqued my individual interest to help me figure out what path to take once obtaining my undergraduate degree. And so I realized my love for helping students transition. And so I was able to start my professional career in the field of education. And it started off at the 5 and 6 year olds. And each year the students got older and older and older. And I enjoyed more and more what I did because I finally got to higher ed. And I recently transitioning from undergraduate admissions, where I was first introduced, where I got my master's at Southeast Missouri State University in higher education administration. So I was able to be in the classroom as well as work full-time in the field to really help me soak up everything that I loved. But then moving back to the Pennsylvania area, where I actually got my undergraduate degree at Lincoln University, it was kind of full circle. This opportunity with the School of Pharmacy at Temple, realizing that one, we know the direction of higher ed, but then we also understand that students are not really being exposed to the various areas that this unique field has to offer. And so it makes me excited every time I hear and see, and I will be connecting with you all thereafter, as to how can I help students that love science, that love or have an interest in pharmacy, but help them understand to see past the pharmacy countertops. And so as Nancy stated, one of our programs, RAQA, one of the first in the nation to actually have that program, it really helps our students, young and old, whether they're new to the profession or just returning, to really broaden their scope about this unique field. So again, super excited. And it's just really about just trying different things to realize what works for you, because the path that we have in our brain is always going to deviate.
I love that. And that is so much about why we have Ignite, is so that students can hear these stories and see that, their path might wind and they might get somewhere different than what they thought they would when they first started out. Thanks. Katelyn, go ahead.
And that's a really good point that you say that, because my path definitely did not start with wanting to be in the pharmaceutical industry at all. I grew up in agriculture, and I grew up on a hay farm, all up and down the East Coast, and a dairy farm. And so I actually went to DelVal and studied dairy science. And that's what, I started studying, and then quickly realized that, having a degree in dairy science, there wasn't many opportunities out there or job opportunities. So I actually switched my degree to ag business and then minored in dairy science. And I had so many hopes and dreams of returning home to the farm and taking that over. And then basically after college, I went through so many career opportunities that I probably can't even list them all or remember them. I started with doing artificial insemination for select sires, traveling all up and down the East Coast, basically, stationed out of New Jersey. I went from being a vet receptionist in a veterinary clinic to being a vet technician and working in a small animal clinic, and then which basically led me to working in the human health industry for insurance for a little bit, and then realized that really just was not where I wanted to be. And my life was solely around animals, and just they made me so much happier than humans do. So I had no idea that my job that I'm in now was even an option until a recruiter actually contacted me and shared, this experience and what Merck Animal Health was looking for. So I actually started out as being a contractor for Merck for a couple of years, and it was a little bit of a rocky road, being a contractor, because you have no idea if your job is stable or if you're going to have a job after your contract ends. And then, through hard work and dedication, I got offered a headcount position with Merck, and that's where I am today. But I definitely had no, idea that the job that I have was even a job. If a recruiter contacted me and mentioned it. So, but yeah, that's me.
I love that. Being open to the possibilities, you never know, right?
No, you don't. Absolutely. You have no idea. So it's going to be a windy road, but at the end of it, it's going to lead you to where you're meant to be for sure.
Thanks so much. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Lorraine.
Yeah. I also have a windy road, although I think, unlike Katelyn's story, mine has been a lot in one company, but working at Johnson & Johnson, it's a big healthcare company. So I have been really fortunate to work on different positions and in different products to always keep learning and growing in my career. So I ended up at Johnson & Johnson after undergrad. And I realized in undergrad that I wanted to do brand management and be on the business side, but wanted to do things around health and wellness. And so Johnson & Johnson is a big healthcare company. So I started in our consumer division working on products like Splenda, Tylenol, Johnson's Baby, a lot of household products, learning the fundamentals of marketing and choosing different roles that would help me learn different aspects of marketing. And one of the roles that I really worked hard to get was a position out in the Middle East. So I was newly married, and my husband was game for going anywhere in the world. So we moved our little family and our cats to Dubai, and we lived out there for 2.5 years, where I got to manage Listerine for the Middle East and North Africa. And it was a great experience to be able to learn business and marketing and really learn about, I wanted to learn about consumers that were very different than the consumers that we're working with here in the US. So that was a terrific experience, and just really, I learned that I like a challenge and wanted something really complex to work on, complex business situations. So when I came back from the US, I chose to switch into our pharmaceutical products because they are very complex and challenging from a regulatory environment, from a science environment. So I've had 2 main roles here in our pharmaceutical group. The first was working on a new prostate cancer drug, where I got to do all of our marketing for patients, put together a TV commercial, put together educational materials. And there my job was really about translating the hard science into what a patient could understand. And so I really loved that, and it was a really rewarding job. And now I'm still in the oncology group, but now working in and talking directly to oncologists and helping to educate them. So love what I do, but I think I just keep in the lens of, what's the next step in my career that's going to help me learn and grow and stay challenged. And, I've enjoyed every step along the way.
Thanks. Yeah, such a great perspective, and being able to think about, like, if you're at a larger company, you might be able to build an entire career there because there are all these different ways that you can pivot and different opportunities to take. Yeah. All right, so let me take a look at our questions here. I'm going to ask this one. So can you share an example, a brief example of a professional obstacle you faced and how you overcame it? I think a lot of times students are afraid of the word failure, And we like to frame it in a positive lens because everybody fails and we learn from it. But if you can think of something pertaining to your professional life and share that, that'd be wonderful.
Sure. So yeah, it's funny, the mention of failure, that everybody's always so afraid of that. And I tell my teams all the time, that's the way you grow. That's the way you learn. You know, I'm a person that learns by doing and experiences. And the other important thing about recognizing, you know, quote unquote failures is talking about them and sharing them. And a lot of my team members that I mentor, I tell them specifically about failures I've had, you know, and they're like, oh, and so it's really good to share those experiences and recognize that is how we grow. One of the things, you know, my main role now really actually has nothing to do with science or compliance, which I always think is funny. It's more about people, right? So my focus pretty much every day is growing my team, growing my people, giving them opportunities and kind of teaching and mentoring them. I actually just started back at Delaware Valley University in the Management and Organizational Leadership Master's Program, again, which is super fun because my undergraduate and my other master's is all in the science field. So now this is in the business field. So Lorraine, you were talking about the basics of marketing. So I'm in business acumen 1 now, and we had a whole section on marketing, and it blew. There's so many things that just kind of surprised me that I never even realized were there. But to go back to your question, I digress. But you know, there was this one time in my career I remember where I had identified this candidate for this position that I had, which was an amazing position. And I put them in that role, and I quickly realized that I had definitely made the wrong decision. You know, the person wasn't delivering. I think I was like wowed by their interview skills and whatnot. So it was a hard lesson to learn, but we repositioned there and everything worked out well. But I think what's key to recognize is that in any career, you will make mistakes. You know, you will have challenges. And that's okay. And that's how you grow. And one of the most important things too, I think, when being in this type of situation is having a good mentor or manager that can kind of help talk you through it or give you strategies or share stories about challenges. I've been with Charles River for almost 24 years. So I've got a lot of stories. So I spend a lot of time telling those stories to my teams because they're going through things that I've gone through, you know, and telling them, you know, this worked for me, it might not work for you, and just kind of strategizing that way. So, so that's what I would say. Everybody has those failures. They happen, and you have to remain positive and look at them as a growth opportunity.
I think hindsight is always 2020, and I've learned that throughout the years. So I had an opportunity when I first, I was a semester away from completing my master's, and there was a position open within my department, and I just knew I was going to get the job, knew I was going to get interviewed, all of that. I wasn't selected for an interview. A student was actually hired, and it beat me down. And it's just like, well, what did I do wrong? How come this and how come that? But hindsight, it really gave me an opportunity to grow where I currently was, but is actually contributing to what I'm doing now. And so when I was at Southeast, I was able to connect with the various departments to work on coordinating open house, to work on coordinating our information sessions and all of those things. And at a larger university, you know, there's so many different ins and outs and layers. And if you have satellite campuses as well, you know, you have to be mindful of those things. And so in the moment, it was just like, well, how come I can't be an admission counselor? I'm ready. I've done this. But there were also things that I think was preparing me for something later, something bigger. And now heading up the recruitment efforts specifically for the Doctor of Pharmacy program, if I didn't have those experiences to learn and grow and to be faced with what we called was failure, I wouldn't have had this opportunity where I thought I was leaving admissions. I thought I was done. Okay, I'm moving over to academic advising. I don't want to travel anymore. And then it was just this random phone call from Temple and was just like, hey, you have all of these skill sets. Have this new position. We've never had it before. Would you be interested? Absolutely. And I didn't even apply for it. So it's really about, just honing those failures and embracing them. I think if I was a sourpuss about it, I wouldn't have been able to turn it into a win. Although it was a failure then, I love what I'm doing now because I'm able to just take in all of those failures and all of those places that I was just like, oh man, I got knocked down. But here I am doing those things and being able to grow from those experiences to apply them to present day. So failures are good. You just got to embrace them.
So important for students to hear, because as future job seekers or even internship seekers, you're going to hear no a lot. So roll with the punches. Only takes one yes, right? Go ahead, Katelyn.
Yeah, so coming out of college, I guess you could say I felt really lost. You're stuck in this grind for 4 years of just getting your work done to finally achieve that, your goal of graduating at the end. And so after I went through all of these job opportunities and I felt lost because I couldn't just find a place that I could call home and that I wanted to do the rest of my life. So when I was offered this opportunity to work for Merck, I was excited, but I was also really scared because doing these other jobs, I just worked for my family's farm where I had to deal with, family, and a little vet clinic where there's minimal, 2 employees. And now I'm going to be working for corporate America, with Merck. And so it was a little bit, stressful to think about joining such a large company as a contractor. Needless to say, you're not even, hired by Merck. So when I started, it was really exciting for me because I had this goal set for me, because after being offered that, I did my research on every job opportunity that has to do with working for Merck. And so being a drug safety specialist with companion animal is really where I started out. And so learning all of the products that Merck makes for companion animals, but I knew that my heart really lied with livestock, and it always has been. And so my goal was to hopefully transition from working in just the companion animal sector to going over and working in livestock, or trying to do both of them. So within a couple, the first weeks of working with Merck, I was trying to, impress and do my best. And it came a time where the manager that I had at the time sat me down in, a room alone to ask me how I thought that I was doing and what my opinion was on the job and if I liked it or not. And basically at the end of this talk told me that she just, didn't think that I was going to last very long at Merck, that she thought I was very immature, and that just coming out of college, she just didn't see me staying with Merck for, a very long time. And it really, really beat me down. And although it beat me down, it really pushed me to do more and learn more and prove her wrong. And so now 5 years later, I work in the livestock sector, and I've really grown as a human. And it goes to show, you can't listen to what other people have to think and say about you. Take it as a learning lesson and push yourself to do more and learn more and get to that goal of where you see yourself. So I could definitely say, I felt like a failure when she told me that, that I thought this job was going to be the job for the rest of my life and I was going to be set, and so it made me grow as a person and realize that I can't listen to negative things like that. And here I am today.
That's awesome. And, I think that's tough, as especially someone starting out in their career, to have to face, a superior and hear those kinds of hard words. But what resiliency to be able to take that and use it as fuel for your fire.
Absolutely.
That's hard to do. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Lorraine.
I would say I've also experienced personnel challenges and not getting the job and getting harsh feedback. But just to give a different example, one thing that I've experienced more than once is being told no on a professional level of a project that I've worked on for a long time, not getting funding. So, you know, a big part of our of my jobs has been, you know, doing a lot of due diligence to recommend the right strategy and direction for a brand, and working on different projects that you're ultimately going to senior leadership and saying, you know, here's all the research that I've done, all the background, we should invest in this initiative. And I was in charge of a really big initiative when I was on the prostate cancer group, and one that, you know, was fully supported by senior leaders, and that they were telling me that this was a big priority for the business, and had worked for several months, over a year, in putting together proposals and asking for incremental funding to be able to do this initiative on the prostate cancer team. And in the end, we didn't get the money to do it. And so what was my big grand idea ended up getting kind of whittled down into something a lot smaller and less impactful, which, you know, I had to realize, okay, this is not, I'm not taking this personally. This is not about me. I was able to go and show my thinking and show my strategy and what I could do, and I left a great impression. But it was just about the business and the timing and where resources were able to be allocated. So I was able to kind of, you feel like you're failing and you're letting yourself down, you're letting your team down, but say, okay, this is not about me, and how I want to show up is showing up, understanding the bigger picture of what's happening in the business. So making it more about me and my project, and seeing, okay, I understand why we couldn't choose to invest in this because we have to invest in other things in the business. And you know, still here I've done all this great work. So for the next person who's in this job, or, you know, for the next time the investment cycle comes up, here's a plan that's already in place that we can kind of reevaluate at another time. So it's just kind of taking the high road and making sure, you know, you still feel like it's a win personally, that you put in the work, even if it wasn't able to get executed how you wanted to.
Such great examples, everybody. And I think this is one of the questions that's so valuable to students. You know, students, here's a panel of highly successful individuals working in the field of pharmaceuticals. And yes, all of them have experienced their trials and tribulations. You know, it's part of the road, you know, of your career. So thank you, everyone, for your honesty and sharing that. I think we really have time for one more quick question. So let me think here. Can you share a time when your personal life impacted your professional life, and how did you handle this time at work? So I'll ask you to be brief so we don't run too far over, but you can go, you know, as deep or not with this one as you'd like. So go ahead, Nancy.
Sure. Well, gosh, with short on time, that's going to be tough, you know, because I'm a talker. But you know, I'm just reflecting over the past year and a half. I have two relatively young children, and you know, obviously with schools closing down and still, you know, needing to do my job, I was already working remotely, mainly because I spend a lot of time traveling. However, I was not working remotely with two small children, you know, pretending to go to school for them as well. You know, they're elementary age, so, you know, slightly impactful. So definitely was a challenge. I think the biggest thing for me as a people leader was, you know, recognizing that my team was having very similar challenges, no matter what they were dealing with, whether it was children, family, friends, pets, whatever the case may be. And really being empathetic to that, and making sure that, you know, we as a company and as people leaders did our best to support the individual needs, because it's not a one size fits all. And I think that, you know, going through that experience myself gave me kind of additional empathy for my folks. And I also feel like what was really nice about it was that there are some leaders that, you know, maybe didn't see it that way, but after the pandemic were almost forced into it, which I think was great, because In the end, it has made our company much more flexible with that kind of work-life blend. I don't like work-life balance. I call it a blend because it is like a blend these days. And really just making sure it's individualized and it really made us stronger as a company and as leaders as well. So.
Well, your people are lucky to have you, someone so understanding, to be empathetic, and that's great to hear that that's been your experience. Go ahead, Leah.
So both life and death were personal obstacles, but both professional obstacles. So when my mom passed, I didn't understand what taking a break looked like. I didn't understand blending or balancing of work life. It was, I don't have any kids, I'm not married, but I have a job. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was like beating myself up. And I remember after my mom passed, I needed to take 2 weeks off. I was in another state. I needed to, go back, handle things with my brothers, all of that. And I remember my supervisor was like, when you coming back to work? I have to first get myself together in order to be the person that you hired, and also to be the employee that I want to be and the contributor that I want to be. And that helped me to learn how to advocate for myself, because I didn't have that skill set prior to. And then fast forwarding when I had my son, so I do understand, Nancy, what you mean, because he's 4, and just experiencing one being out of work, and I'm highly educated, I'm ready to work, I have experience, and at one point in time I felt like I could not get a job doing what I enjoy, doing what I love, or being paid what I was worth. So again, I was forced to re-examine, but also advocate for myself. And I think through those life and death experiences, I learned advocacy. And then that also translated to supporting others to advocate for themselves, so that when you have employers that don't understand that blend, or taking time to, hey, I got to fix this first in order for to be the best person you need me to be. I think those experiences definitely helped to grow me personally and professionally. But then it allows me to support now students that go through those personal and professional trials. How do you advocate for yourself and find that blend to still be productive in both areas, or all areas of your life?
I just have to say, so thank you so much for sharing. I'm so sorry for your loss too. That topic of advocacy, that can be really hard for someone who is just starting out their career to feel comfortable advocating for themselves, asking for
especially women.
Yes.
And as we all are a panel of women, I've learned that, especially women in science. I do a women in science panel specifically because of being able to advocate for not only ourselves, but also others, because we are a minority within the field of science.
Yeah, so being firm, but being professional about your needs, that takes practice, but there's people here who would talk to you about it, students. So hope you can take advantage of that. Thank you. Go ahead, Katelyn.
Yeah, so mine definitely has to do with advocacy for myself and my personal well-being. So when starting with Merck and where I live now, I live in really rural Pennsylvania, which is not near anything that has to do with civilization or, really good jobs. And so to drive to my job with Merck, it was almost a 2-hour commute one way just to get there. And so with being really young and just starting out in my career, I felt like I could not speak up for myself. So starting with Merck, it was really good opportunity and driving there and stuff like that. But after a while, it really got to my personal well-being. I mean, you're leaving very early in the morning to do a 2-hour commute to work, and then working all day. And the last thing you want to do at 5 o'clock is this 2-hour drive home. On top of that, you have your personal life at home. So, my husband was traveling and he wasn't home. We live on a farm. So who's going to take care of our animals? Am I going to be able to do all of this myself within, one day's time, 5 days a week? And, we made it work for 2 years until finally I felt the need that I needed to speak up about how I felt about this and how it was really affecting my personal life. I was getting into a dark state where I just was becoming miserable, and I didn't want to do it anymore. So finally I found my voice and I learned to speak up for myself and say, I really can't do this. We need to come up together, and I'm willing to work on this together to come up with an answer. And it led to working from home a couple days a week. And now it has led to indefinitely working from home. So it's definitely learning and advocating for yourself, which in turn has led for other employees that I work with to advocate for themselves and their personal problems. And it's just really rewarding to see you achieve something like this, but then also see your department achieve, the same goal.
And that's so great. You put in this really hard work for 2 years' time and showed that you were capable and that, you were a value to the company. And so
Yeah.
why wouldn't they support that?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a more basic but important example from early in my career. My first job, first role with J&J, I had a manager who so grateful that she really emphasized that no matter your life situation, you deserve to have a life after work, outside of work. And I think that was so important for me to hear, because when I started and I was 21, at that point, I didn't have kids, I didn't have a husband, but she was like, you do, find something that you want to do outside of work and hold on to that, because I think it's very easy, especially now that we're virtual, to just work around the clock. And so for me, that looked like, back then it looked like every day at the end of work, 5:30, going to the company gym, and other people would hang around and be working, and probably doing more chatting than working, between the hours of 5 to 7, and I would be at the gym and I would just head out right at 5. I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. This is what's important to me. So the things may change during your life of what is important, what you want to step away from work to do, and the time, whether it's before work, after work, in the middle of the day, it changes at different points of your life. But I was so grateful for that manager who really said, even if you don't have kids, you deserve, or you don't have a husband or some, a significant other, you deserve to have, to find something that you want to do outside of work. So that was a good lesson for me.
Yeah, that's really great to hear, because I think there are a lot of students that, they're so psyched to be in their first position and they want to show up and they want to work really hard, and there's nothing wrong with that, but also just it can take some time to recognize where your limits are, and being kind to yourself to say, like, I'm allowed to I'm allowed to have fun, or I'm allowed to have recreation, or whatever is important to me. I don't have to, like, my circumstances now might look different than they do 10 years from now, but there's work and then there's the rest of me. So yeah. That was great advice. Thank you. I can't thank you all enough for being here today and just getting to hear your story and such wonderful different perspectives from everybody. I am really glad that we could put on this pharmaceutical panel. This is the first one that we've ever done. So just thank you again for being here.